14th, and today I'll be reading Glory Be, chapters 16 and 17. Chapter 16, I will be doing my teacher model for, and chapter 17, you will actually be doing your independent work for. So it is very important that you're always watching my videos because that's where I read the story. Today's objective, students will be able to make inferences while reading a story. And your DOL, students will identify what the text says, combine it with what they know to make an inference about events in a story. Today I want to teach you how to make inferences as we read. So the first thing you do is read the text and pay attention to the key details. Then the second step, you ask yourself, what do I already know about situations like this? So that's your background knowledge, what you know. This is kind of your connection to your own personal life. And finally, you make your inference. Glory Be, chapter 16, and when I reach my inference, I will stop and I will do a teacher model so you know exactly how to make inferences while you read Glory Be. Chapter 16, Almost Dark. That evening, by the time Robbie's headlights hit the Welcome to Hanging Moss, Mississippi population 8003 sign out on the highway, the sun was sinking behind the trees and the sky was a million colors of orange. We were almost home. I leaned against Robbie's back seat, thinking about that day and what Emma would say if she found out Jesslyn and I were joyriding with Robbie, the North Carolina jailbird. Jesslyn hollered so loud it woke me out of my daydreaming. She leaned over to shake my knee. Glory, is somebody following us? I turned around. Oh no, I said. The car's got a big red light on the top. Uh-oh, Robbie said before he pulled in next to a small store advertising corn, tomatoes, and green beans. It's a policeman. I was taking in big gulps of air. I could hardly talk. He's getting out of his car. Jesslyn was whispering. He's writing down our license plate number. Wonder if he's been following us all along. Robbie looked in his rearview mirror. When the policeman tapped our window, Jesslyn and I nearly jumped out of our skin. I need your driver's license, son, he said to Robbie. Get out of the car and turn around. Yes, sir. Robbie stepped us outside. I scooched to the edge of my seat and leaned my head toward Jesslyn. Robbie reached into his back pocket to hand over his wallet. You're from North Carolina? The policeman looked hard at Robbie's license. What brings you down here? While Robbie explained about how he was here staying with his aunt for the summer, wanting to play football come September, my heart was pounding so hard I could hardly hear. I wanted to come home where I belong. The policeman said, There's people from out of state down here stirring up trouble. You wouldn't be one of them, would you? No, sir, Robbie said politely. Get back in your car, drive straight on home. It's not safe to be out after dark tonight. Just when I didn't think this evening could get any worse, the policeman's hand brushed across his gun and he shined his flashlight in my eyes. Then Jesslyn's. You girls visiting from North Carolina too? He asked. Yes, sir, Jesslyn answered, and I almost glad to hear her lie because lying to a policeman wasn't nearly as bad as what Emma and our daddy would have done if he dragged us home in his big car with the bright red light shining for all the world to see. Then the policeman looked hard at me and Jesslyn. You're sure you're not from around here? No, sir, Jesslyn's voice squeaked out. You look kind of familiar. The policeman shined his flashlight around the back seat again. Jesslyn didn't answer the policeman. Neither did I. Pretty soon, he nodded at Robbie. Son, you get these girls home. It's too late to be out on the highway. Whoever their daddy is, he'll be worrying. Right, so before I start chapter 17, I'm just going to make an inference about what chapter 16 will we read. So I'm going to reread the text, paying attention to the details. So I'm going to reread this small portion. The policeman looked hard at me and Jesslyn. You're sure you're not from around here? No, sir, Jesslyn's voice squeaked out. You look kind of familiar. The policeman shined his flashlight around the back seat again. Jesslyn didn't answer the policeman. Neither did I. Pretty soon, he nodded at Robbie. Son, you get these girls home. It's too late to be on the highway. Whoever their daddy is, he'll be worrying. So in this section, the police officer is questioning Robbie and the girls. The girls lie to the officer about where they are from. The police officer looks at him hard, paying close attention to their faces, but lets them go. Step 2. What do I know about situations like this? Well, as I read through this, I know that when someone is looking at you hard, they are trying to figure out if you are telling the truth or trying to recognize if they know you from somewhere. Now I can make my final inference by combining these two steps. Well, from what the text said and from what I know, I can infer the police officer did recognize the girls, and that is why he told Robbie to get the girls home, because whoever their daddy is, he'll be worrying. Okay, so I was able to complete all 3 steps, but in order to get to step 3, you must combine steps 1 and 2. Now I'm going to read chapter 17, and you will be making an inference about chapter 17, so it's very important that you're listening, and you can always pause my slides to read it yourself. Chapter 17, Cross My Heart. When Robbie's car started up again, I was shaking. My fingernails dug into the back seat. You think that policeman's going to get us in trouble somehow? I finally asked. Daddy will skin us alive if he finds out you're not shopping with Mary Louise and that we got stopped by the police. I dug my fingernails even deeper. Once Daddy is done with us, it'll be Emma's turn to skin our hides. We didn't do anything wrong, Robbie answered. If you don't count Jesslyn lying to a policeman, I said. We were back in town now. Robbie stopped the car in front of our house. Not here. Y'all better let me out by the library, I told him. I'll walk home. The last thing I needed was for Emma to see me getting out of Robbie's car. You know, Glory, Jesslyn said, without even turning around to look at me, you shouldn't go sneaking into people's business. Don't tell anything about today, anything you saw or anything you heard. I didn't hear anything. I was going to try real hard to keep Robbie's secret. Not like the time I blabbed to Emma that Jesslyn had broken our mama's China cat statue and I'd promised I wouldn't tell. Or when I let it slip to Frankie that Emma had sewed lace to Jesslyn's underpants for pep squad tryouts. Nope, not like that. This time I was keeping a real secret. As long as I lived, I'd never tell the story, if I lived long enough to stand a shakedown by Emma or Daddy. Robbie let me around the corner from the library. Gloria, I'll be back at the house soon after you get there, Jesslyn said. When I got home, Emma was waiting on the front porch. You been at the library all this time? Yes'm. Get in here, Glory. Where's Jesslyn? She promised she'd be back before dark. It's not quite dark yet. I don't know where she is. I kept my eyes on the grass. Brother Joe's got a meeting at the church. He's due back any time now. When he finds out Jesslyn's not here, Emma's voice stopped. I never liked the idea of that child going off to Memphis shopping. When do you reckon your sister's getting home? Don't know, don't care. I caught myself before another word popped out of my mouth. Jesslyn might get in trouble, but I wouldn't be the one telling on her. I walked into the kitchen like I was any other night of the summer. I sat at the table eating a stick of Emma's warm cornbread. I turned the pages of Jesslyn's magazine and looked at the movie star Sandra Dee, with not one single solitary blonde hair where it didn't belong. I focused my mind on how she'd have to sleep on brush rollers all night long to get the flipped-up hairdo. When Emma walked in, she set down a plate of fudge big enough to feed half of hanging moss. I closed the magazine. Can I have a piece? She handed me a tiny bite and covered it up. I'm taking this home to my company, she said. Who's your company? Must be a heap of people to eat all that candy. Just visitors, she said. Emma didn't ever have visitors. I've been to her house over on the other side of town. There wasn't room for anybody but Emma. I looked at the big plate wrapped in tinfoil. Who are they? I got 4 or 5 folks sleeping on my sofa and in the back room. Who? I asked again. Emma sat at the kitchen table like she was plumb worn out. She pulled her chair close to me. Young folks from up north, like your friend Laura's mother. Your daddy knows, she said. Some white people have fired maids for keeping civil rights workers, freedom workers at their houses, but Brother Joe don't mind. Laura's mother's a freedom worker. At least that's what Frankie calls her. He says it's like freedom something's bad. I picked at a scab on my arm. I couldn't look at Emma. Wonder if they'll try to get the pool opened up. Frankie says it's closed because all of the Yankees like Laura in town. Civil rights people here got a heap of things need doing besides that pool. Important things, like helping us figure out who to vote, teaching children to read, Emma said. It's good you and Laura are friends. I suspect she's lonely sitting at the library. What with her mama gone over to the new clinic. Frankie's mad about me being friends with Laura. His daddy says for him not to play with me. I looked right at Emma and took a deep breath. And now the pool's closed, I said. And you've got Yankees visiting. Lots of stuff is really happening here, Emma. Emma took my hand and held it up next to hers. Praying hands, I whispered. Praying hands. We got a lot to pray over, baby. She pushed herself up from the table, finished wrapping up the fudge to take home. I went to the porch to think. Fireflies blinked on and off in the front yard, and the crickets chirped so loud it was hard to get my thoughts straight. Maybe I could just write another letter to the newspaper. Say how mean it was for a policeman to accuse any old boy out just riding on the highway of causing trouble. My daddy wouldn't need to know who wrote it. None of his church people would ever find out. A whole lot of those letters didn't have names signed to them. I could be anonymous like they were. When I peered down the sidewalk, Emma was waiting for her friend, Mr. Miles's Liberty taxi cab that picked her up some nights. I looked again, and finally here came Jesslyn, holding her sandals in one hand, fanning herself with a magazine with the other. Jesslyn's home. I started down to meet her. Did you have fun in Memphis with Mary Louise? I yelled. Emma mumbled something about Jesslyn not having the brains the good Lord gave a flea. Then she juggled the tinfoil-wrapped fudge in her giant pocketbook and eased herself into the back seat of the taxi. Lucky for Jesslyn, they drove off before Emma had a chance to ask anything about the so-called trip to Memphis. Pretty soon, our daddy crossed the street and stood on the front porch. When we followed him inside, he carefully lined up his sermon and his Bible on the front hall table. You and Mary Louise get what you needed? He asked. The fire baton and all? We had fun, but I didn't buy anything except some new magazines. She held up her movie magazine, which I knew she'd had all summer. I'm tired, Daddy. Think I'll go upstairs to bed. Jesslyn gave me a keep-your-mouth-shut look, and so I did. She walked in the kitchen, poured some iced tea, and took her glass upstairs. She pulled the hall phone into the bathroom and shut the door tight with the extra long cord squished underneath the door. I sat on my bed real quiet so I could hear her. Jesslyn was whispering. We took a drive to Elvis's house in Tupelo and got stopped by the police on the way home. It had to be Mary Louise on the phone. I lay down on my bed and opened the witch tree symbol. When Jesslyn stopped talking, I marked my place with a bookmark made out of magnolia leaf I'd pressed in Bible school. Jesslyn waltzed into her room wearing pink pajamas and a goony, dreamy look. Want to play cards? She asked. I couldn't believe it. Sure, junk poker. I grabbed from my box. Not that silly game, Jesslyn said. Besides, Daddy doesn't like us betting on card games. I didn't mention how he wouldn't like a lot of the stuff she'd been up to lately. So what's in your shoebox you keep tied up under your bed if it's not junk for poker? Nothing. Since I'd look inside the box, I knew what was in there. Soon she'd add the picture of her and Robbie at Elvis's house and the scrap of green flowered wallpaper. Let's play gin rummy, Jesslyn said. I shuffled and dealt us each 10 cards, then turned the next one over. I wish we played together more like we did last summer. Last summer was a long time ago, Glory. Jesslyn picked up a card. I was quiet for a minute, thinking of what to say next. I had fun in Tupelo with you and Robbie, except for the last part. That was scary. Remember, you can't tell Daddy, Jesslyn said. You can't tell where I went. You can't tell about the policeman, and you especially can't tell anybody anything you heard Robbie say. I didn't hear a thing. I picked up the King of Hearts and slapped it on the stack. Jesslyn turned over her last card and shook her head. I won again. You're not that great at cards, you know. Well, maybe if somebody played with me more, I started to say, but Jesslyn wasn't listening. Cut the light off. I made the room dark, pulled back my bedspread, and crawled under the covers. The air conditioner was so loud I could barely hear Jesslyn's voice across the room. Glory, remember, she whispered, half asleep. It's a secret. In the dark, over my own pink pajamas, I crossed my heart. Then, just to be sure, before falling asleep, I crossed my heart again. Your independent work today is to reread Glory B. Chapter 17, paying attention to details. And you can reread page 110 specifically because you're going to take part of that page to make an inference. And I actually already picked the text evidence for you. Then you're going to use your background knowledge to come up with a final inference. Okay, have a great Monday.